I genuinely believe that Riftbound can become the #2 TCG, outcompeting One Piece, Lorcana, even Magic the Gathering. And it's because Riot has something that none of those other IPs have. This video was inspired by fellow content creator on Twitter by the name of the Toy Collector. And in this post, he discusses his thesis on the same idea. He says Riot can become the #2 TCG to Pokemon because they have so many levers that they can pull that the others cannot. First of all, they can launch an online client. This is something that they said that they're thinking about potentially doing, but it's not in the works yet. But down the line, they could launch an online client in the launcher along with all their other games. And this would instantly onboard a couple of millions of players, because you have to remember, the total amount of people that play their games monthly is anywhere from 150 million to 200 million. So the fact that they're launching a new game would instantly drive up hype and people would want to check it out. Furthermore, they can incentivize this by giving away a skin for people that accomplish something as simple as completing the tutorial or playing 5 games. Something like that. That would get people testing the game. That would get people to try the game out and see if it's a good fit for them. And then those that are converted, those that are into TCGs, which, it wouldn't be so high as like 50%, but you could say maybe 10% or 20% of the people that try the game would actually stick around. If they do that, that would instantly onboard a couple million people. And to further incentivize things, they could create a system where people that play ranked and they score an ELO or they get to a certain rank, diamond, challenger, whatever, those people would get rewarded with the redemption of a physical card, a physical Riftbound card. So not only are they able to get people to try out the game, but they can also easily incentivize people to play the game a lot. Right? It would take many hours to get to Masters or Challenger for this Eagle system. So they could incentivize tens, if not hundreds of hours of gameplay, get people really fascinated with the game, make them into huge fans, and they could easily do this with a very high success rate. So they could onboard millions of players, millions of dedicated players with ease. Because we have to remember, the hardest part of creating games, not only TCGs, is getting players. It's the marketing, the distribution. And Riot has already done that over the past 15 years. They're already the top 3 most well-known game companies in the world. They have access to such a large player base of 500 million, a billion potential players that are all aware of their games. And on top of all of that, Riot has also been working on their MMO for the past couple of years. And it's basically one of, I would say, 4 MMOs that anyone is excited about. First being GTA, second is World of Warcraft Classic, third is arguably Guild Wars, and then fourth is Riot. So if they manage to pull this off, that would onboard another, potentially tens of millions of people into the Riot IP, get them interested in storyline, get them interested in the characters, which would eventually translate to people who want to collect those characters' physical manifestations in the form of cards. And we're seeing them make more additional plays in growing the IP by first looking at what they're doing with Arcane, what they already did with Arcane, which was a huge success at the time. And they've since then said that they plan on doing more things similar to this, not exactly the same thing, like a feature TV show, but something on a smaller scale. They're definitely open to doing such things, and they're actively looking into different options of doing this. So, unlike One Piece, and we'll talk about Magic the Gathering's IP later, the issue with One Piece's IP is that it's almost done. They are going to remake the anime, and they do have the live action, but either way, it follows the same adventure of the same crew, which, no offense to them, but it's an amazing story, but it is limited in its IP, unless One Piece decides to branch into other areas of the world, other crews, allow fan-made content like the fan letter to become canon. Unless they do that, the IP is going to be limited of just following the storyline of Luffy and the Straw Hats. And it's not, because eventually you're going to get to a point where you're on set 30, you've seen the 200th Luffy card, you've seen the 200th Zoro card. It's going to get confusing, and it's going to start getting old because you're seeing the same characters over and over again. You're repeating the same plot lines over and over again. And also, Bandai has a history of screwing things up with the card games. They've definitely improved since then, but they do have an extensive track record of screwing up many card games, relaunching them many years in the future. Not saying that this same thing's going to happen to One Piece, because One Piece is definitely a good card game, and they're doing good now, but there's a high chance that problems come up. Now, to talk about Magic the Gathering's issue is that their IP is incredibly weak. The way they did it in the past with the 3 sets in a new plane, I guess they were attempting to create some sort of IP, some sort of storyline that you could follow, but they've since pivoted away from that into what they're doing now, releasing 7 or 8 sets every year with completely unrelated stuff. They're becoming the Fortnite of trading card games. They're just integrating all these other IPs like Avatar, Last of Us, Marvel, right? All this stuff, and their player base, their original player base is getting sick of this, and they're moving on to other card games. So Riot is positioned extremely well with an IP that potentially has infinite possibilities, because as you saw with Legends of Runeterra, they can build out storylines, they can create new characters. Because the world is so large, it's not a storyline, right? League of Legends wasn't created as a game that has a storyline, so the IP around it, it's extremely flexible. They can spend an entire season like they did with Arcane in just 2 cities, Kiltover and Vaughn, while there's 10 other areas of the map that they could cover, right? So there's infinite possibilities, infinite directions on how and, how they want to tell the story. And you combine all of that with the fact that the game is extremely well built. It has the most successful competitive scene, considering that it's only been around for 7 or 8 months. And the market prices are also doing the best of any TCG that I've kept an eye on in its first year. Like, no other TCG has been such a success. No other TCG has had such a successful competitive play with that many, selling out 2,000 seats at a regionals multiple times a year, right? That's never happened to my knowledge. So overall, with all of this combined, that's why I think Riot has a chance, an extremely high chance, to become the number 2 TCG in the world in a couple of years.